Hello, welcome back. GovDoc Breakdown, no opinions, just facts and summaries, government documents, and we let you take it from there. Back at it again, June 12th, Supreme Court opinion, Soto v. the United States. All right, Supreme Court case. We got a lot of them coming. There's a lot of them that have been released, so let's get into it. This is involving Simon Soto, a veteran who applied for a special veterans payment program called Combat Related Special Compensation, or CRSC. Just remember that. Soto had a combat-related disability, PTSD, from his service in Iraq, and he filed the application and it was approved. However, upon approval, the Navy only gave him 6 years back pay, citing a federal law called the Barring Act. And the Barring Act is a law that sets a 6-year time limit for most people to file money claims against the U.S. government. So the Navy is saying that they only have to pay the money claims that are allowed under the Barring Act, which is the last 6 years of back pay, since under the Barring Act, you cannot make claims for any money before that. That's basically what's going on. And Soto returned and said that the law that created the Combat-Related Special Compensation Program was a different kind of law that had its own system and should not be limited by the 6-year rule in the Barring Act, which is interesting. So this is where we get to the question of the case. Does the CRSC law create its own self-contained process for reviewing and paying claims enough to replace the Barring Act's rules, including the 6-year time limit? And the Supreme Court unanimously said yes. They ruled that the CRSC law does set up its own claims process, so the Barring Act's 6-year deadline does not apply to these kinds of claims. The court reversed the lower court's ruling and said that a law does not need certain words to replace the Barring Act. What matters is whether the law gives the government authority to decide if the claim is valid and how much is owed. The CRSC law clearly does both, says the Supreme Court. It lets the Secretary of the Military Department decide who's eligible and how much they get paid. Therefore, it replaces the Barring Act's rules, including the 6-year time limit. And this is pretty big news for veterans who qualify for CRSC, as they may now be able to receive back pay going farther back, potentially all the way back to when they first became eligible. An important thing to remember here as well is that the ruling does not apply to all government payment programs, only those that have a self-contained system for determining claims like the CRSC. All right, Kaimo, keep your mind open, do your own research, form your own opinion. See you next time.